What if the greatest leadership challenge you'll ever face isn't leading other people? What if it's leading yourself?
Welcome to the Conscious Leaders Unfiltered, the podcast where we strip away the masks, challenge old patterns, have the conversations most people avoid, and explore what it really means to lead with awareness, courage, and authenticity.
I'm Kia.
And I'm Cheryl. Let's get
Unfiltered.
unfiltered. Welcome, listeners, to episode 1 of the Conscious Leaders Unfiltered. Thank you for stopping by and saying hello. And I am here with my co-host, Kia.
Hi.
We are going to be talking about one of the most important concepts of conscious leadership today, self-awareness. It almost sounds like a bad word.
I mean, yeah, it does almost sound like a bad word because people have sensitivities around how they show up in the world.
Absolutely. I agree. So let's start off. What does self-awareness mean to you?
So, self-awareness to me, as like I lead with this every time I'm talking about self-awareness, as a DEI practitioner, self-awareness is like the most fundamental and important part of what I do every day. And it also shows up in, my personal life too, as I interact with my family and my friends. But self-awareness to me is just having a conscious presence about you in every situation. So it means being in tune with and in touch with how you're showing up in every room, how you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, and then really assessing your position in life, in society, in your groups, in your friends, in your work, in your family. It is just, to me, basically an understanding of who you are and how you're showing up in the world.
Absolutely.
What about you, Cheryl? What does self-awareness mean to you?
Oh, I mean, it means exactly how you described it, but really about having a really heightened conscious awareness of what your words, how they have an impact on you
Mhm.
or on the person that's in front of you, how your actions have an impact on somebody else, all of that. Uh, for me, it is just about being honest
Mhm.
with yourself without judgment.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
I'm
Uh-huh.
feeling it.
Yeah. It is the starting point of conscious leadership to me. It is the way
Um,
that we have to start off on this particular journey because without it you can't move forward.
yeah,
It's essential,
self-awareness is like the root of consciousness.
right?
Consciousness
And
is the root of
recognizing.
self-awareness.
Right? And it definitely is a practice. It's not a destination. It's not something that you strive to complete. It
Mhm,
is something that you work on every single day. And I started
mhm,
stumbling at the start here because this was the most difficult thing for me to wrap my head around
mhm,
when I started on this journey. Like looking inside of me at a scary place that was for a very long time.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough position to put yourself in because I think a lot of people have an aversion to criticism, and part of self-awareness is being critical of yourself. So how you
It
go about that is an essential part of knowing how you will end up showing up in the world and how you'll end up leading yourself and other people in the world.
And that's why I said it's a practice that we do, but without judgment to ourselves,
Mhm,
right? Like it's a necessity in our journey. And I guess recognizing when that ego comes in and all that judgment and that negative self-talk, that is really how you're going to be successful in obtaining this self-awareness
mhm.
is also by letting go of those other things,
Yeah.
right? When I said it was a scary place inside of me, I was terrified to go inside. I was so happy to look at everybody else and point out everybody else's flaws,
Mhm.
but to look at myself with kindness and do that?
Mhm.
That seemed like the impossible journey just right there.
Yeah, that really is dreaming the dreaming the impossible dream. I have a lot of appreciation for the idea of treating yourself with kindness. It's a much more difficult task than like, it's one of those things that's, like, way easier said than done. And I think well, you tell me, do you believe that someone can lead others well without leading themselves?
I don't think so. But I think in the moment, it might seem as though they're being successful.
Mhm,
But at the end of the day, I think if we are going to use a term, I think it would be more of they're managing things
mhm,
rather than being a leader. So I think that there's a very distinctive behavior that's missing between a manager and a leader. And I think self awareness is that piece that's missing
mhm.
to help them grow as leaders instead of just a manager of the things.
Yeah,
So, do I think that somebody can be successful? For just a very short time, I think,
mhm,
and I don't think it's a long-term success plan
yeah.
without the self-awareness.
Like, okay, so this is actually hitting so many things that I've had conversations about over the past little bit, and I believe that effective leadership comes from knowing who you are motivating to achieve whatever the outcome is that you're accountable for achieving. And you can't know what motivates people if you don't know how to show up for them and listen to them. The starting point of this is a conversation that I had around privilege. And it's really easy for people to have expectations of others if they don't understand the starting point. And, so like for me, I recognize my privilege in a lot of ways, and it's been a very difficult journey to get to that point. Like, for example, English is my first language. In Canada, that is a definite privilege. It reduces barriers. It makes people feel more accessible to me. I'm more accessible to people. I come from a family where university was an expectation. It wasn't like an aspiration. It was an expectation. All four of my grandparents went to university. That's a position of privilege. I have a skin tone that is lighter. That's a position of privilege. There's so many different things that allow me to have these positions of privilege. When I walk into a room or when I enter a group, I'm immediately aware of what that means for the group of people that I'm in. The evaluating point of that is really difficult because privilege, that understanding of your privilege is difficult. It creates a fragility. It creates a thing of like, well, it doesn't mean that my life hasn't been hard. Nobody's saying that. What the awareness is that your life has been hard, but these particular things have not been the cause of that difficulty. So, what is important in being able to motivate people is understanding that motivation comes from there's an automatic emotional tax, at the very least an emotional tax that comes with motivation. You are giving something to the cause. You're giving something to the movement forward to get to the outcome. As a leader, how you motivate people is very deeply tied to understanding what is going to be important to them, what is going to be difficult for them, and knowing how to find these things out from them because you can't make assumptions. You have to ask questions, you have to listen. And you can't do that if you're coming in with expectations about how a person is going to show up. And for a leader to have reasonable expectations, they have to understand how people in the room are going to respond to them. They have to understand how they're showing up for people. And listening, super important, but also understanding what questions to ask and how to figure out potentially how a person could see you and break down that fragility, break down that ego. So, no, long story, very short. I genuinely believe that you cannot lead anything, any group of people, anywhere, if you are not able to govern yourself accordingly. The end. You can tell I've just been having so many conversations about this because it's like, it is something that I think about. I think about it all the time. All the time. How do I communicate to leaders that the most important thing they can do is show up in a room understanding who they are in that room?
Right. Okay, well, so then let's just talk about you then. So what is the moment that changed your self-awareness? Like how did you come upon this so that you are now able to speak to it in such an incredible clear way?
I mean, yeah, like this comes from a really like deeply personal space. And the exact moment was very shocking. It was shocking because somebody said to me, Kia, you have like such and such tendencies. And I was like, "What? What do you even mean, these tendencies? Like, that's so weird. I do not. Like, what does that even mean?" And then they were like, "No, yeah, you kinda do." And then they, like, listed off all these, like, traits that I was demonstrating, and I was like, "I don't even know what that means." And I was like, my whole self-image was shattered because I had moved from Edmonton, where I'd been perceived as one thing, to come to Toronto and be perceived as, like, the literal opposite of that thing. And it was such a bizarre cultural moment of realization for me because I had not considered what the shift in my environment meant and how I was showing up. It took weeks. It took weeks of me getting over my literal own fragility to be like, wait, hold on, stop. There's a point here. I have not considered what those folks who called me out on this thing have been feeling or experiencing. Like they're just watching me just casually la 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 through the situation with no consideration of how my behavior is impacting them. What it is that I am doing to create positions of discomfort or even potentially unsafe environments because I'm just so unaware. I was like, what the heck? This is real. And that was a moment, I think I was maybe like 25. That was the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, this is, I have to really pay attention. And it was then actually that I started asking my friends, like, do you think I'm a good friend? Like, do I show up as a good friend? And like some of the feedback was just like hurtful because it was true. Like, was I the best listener? No. Was I somebody who listened before I spoke? Was I always pontificating? Yeah, probably. And so all of those things in a very short period of time totally transformed the way I thought about myself in situations and how my presence was impacting other people.
Wow.
Wild. It was wild. What about you?
Uh, Mine was two different moments that I think one made me have to look inside, and then the other was about the awareness of others. So the first one for me to look inside, as I think I've mentioned this maybe briefly in our debut one, but I went through a major depression for years, and I was a people pleaser. I had no idea who I was as an individual at all. I didn't know what I loved, what I liked, my passions. I did what everybody thought I should do. I blamed everybody for everything. I was full of judgment. I just everything was outside of me.
Mhm.
I don't even think I had an inside at that point, to be honest, until I crashed. And then I had to do a lot of work internally to be able to understand and let go of a lot of things. And that those moments helped me turn inward and really to start understanding myself and who I was and how I wanted to show up differently.
Mhm.
The second big one for me was COVID, and it was all of the emotions associated with COVID that, having to lay people off and then bring people back and lay people off and bring people back, and just the whole environment of how heavy people were feeling, the fear, the uncertainty, the just everything about that whole time
Mhm.
really showed me who I was in relation to others, like
Right.
how mindful I was of other people's emotions, how my words were having impacts an impact on others, or what my actions, how they showed up in
Mhm.
like to somebody else. That was that was the second shift for me, and that's when I just was catapulted into this whole
Mm,
journey. So I had to do the inner work, and then then, like, just to take it one step further, to really understand how my words, my actions really had an impact on others. I had to go through that moment.
mhm,
And then I have just now been able to bring it all together and consistently keep working on being better,
yeah,
because that's what it's about now. But yeah, it was two different moments in my time that really, really opened my eyes to what I needed to see.
yeah. Those moments hit so hard, and,
So
like
I don't ever want to go through either one of them again. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm grateful for them. I'm
yeah,
super grateful for those moments,
yeah.
but so hard.
I mean, but, like, also that takes us into, like, this idea of ego. Like, how do we
Oh,
know
yeah.
when our ego is leading?
So it's for me, one of the things that I recognize in my day business when I'm speaking with people is
Mhm,
defensiveness. I find that people become very defensive as soon as the conversation might turn a little bit uncomfortable.
yep,
Um, or they're anticipating some sort of judgment or conflict or something, and they just immediately shut down, they get defensive, and then everything is not their fault.
exactly.
So for me, like, that's the biggest sign that ego is there.
Mhm.
What about you?
I mean, yeah, like, I just touched on the fact that for me, ego and fragility are, like, very similar. They show up very in a very similar way, and a lot of it is the fear of being challenged and the fear of being inadequate, the fear of being criticized, the fear of I'm not doing this well enough and somebody's gonna come and do it better, and I have to show that this is the way or there's no other way at all. And I think the other part of ego is that it's human. Like, it's human nature to have
Oh, yeah.
pride. It's human nature to want to be good. And where your ego is almost like a protection, it's an armor that prevents you from getting all the good things that come with growth because it holds you in. It holds you into that shell that is the armor.
Mhm. Yep.
So when I know my ego is leading is when I hear myself start to say things like, I need you to do this. Well, I don't need you to do anything. You're a human being. What would be great is in this instance, if we could work together to consider the best possible outcomes and how we're both going to show up for that. But managing is full of I needs, leading is full of discussion. And it's really easy to, in a pinch, in a tough spot where, deadlines are up or family members need something or friends are in like a clutch position. Up, do this. That's your ego leading. And your ego is very like trigger driven. Your ego is very like where there's pressure, your ego comes out. And it's something that I have had to work on myself because coming up in retail as a manager during Black Friday, there's a lot of direction. And then those softer moments of like development conversations and growth. Like that's where your ego, or my ego at least, when it was trying to show up, I'd have to be like, this is not the time, the space, or the way. You're not gonna get results from people, you're not gonna motivate people if you're leading with your armor. You gotta take your armor off and show some vulnerability, show some softness. So,
Mhm.
I could automatically tell when my ego is leading based on people's reactions to me. If they're just doing without dialogue or they're just, like, kinda backing away or they're kind of and this is in, like, my family and personal life too. This happens with my wife all the time, where I'll be like, "No, this is how we're gonna do it," and she's like I'm like, "Damn it, there's the ego. There's the ego."
There she is.
So, yeah, those are those moments.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah.
Yeah, so mine is the same. When I not so much leading with when I'm leading, I'm much more aware now of the words that I use, and I often change. Like, I've come to hate the word expectation. Like, oh
Mhm.
my God, could we please like find another way around this? And we talk about it as a team now. Like, how do we find a different, like, that sounds more collaborative, or like we're partnering together to
Mhm.
work on this, because I'm like, expectation just sounds so harsh to
Yeah.
me.
Mhm.
For me, it's again, it's that defensiveness. When it's funny how our brains are so unique to one another, but for me, if somebody is saying something to me that is feedback in some way, I'm good at taking feedback, but not when my ego is like, they're telling you that you're not doing a good job. And then I'm like, I take it so personally that I shut down. I shut down in those moments because all I hear is, you're not good enough. Right? So ego plays on those insecurities that you have that are like building up inside of you. So
Mhm.
everybody's ego really does support them.
Yeah.
I got air quotes there, in a different way, right? And it was, for me, it was a big protection moment, especially going through like these uh a major depression, or these
Mhm.
moments of really heightened emotions, and how to like work through them. Your
Mhm.
ego can protect you a little bit in there, but not you. Once you move past all those things and you learn all the tools and the practices, and you no longer need that
Mhm.
protection, because now you got the training wheels off the bike, and here you
Yeah.
go.
Like, I think there's a difference between confidence and ego. Like, your confidence
Mm,
is essential to leadership. Your confidence is essential to moving through life. It's like it's a metric of how comfortable you are with something, or how, how you see yourself in the world. But it's not the same as ego because it's not driven by defensiveness. And I think that, people have a difficult time receiving feedback because of exactly what you just said, where it's like, the feedback can be constructive, it can be supportive, but it's the moment where you're just like, oh gosh, all I hear is I suck. Like, this is it. And, my greatest issue that I deal with is shame on a regular basis. I have to work hard to not shame myself, to say, Kia, you're really just not good enough. You can't do these things, like all the
right.
imposter syndrome situations or whatever. When I'm going into conversations where I know that feedback is gonna be given to me, I really bolster myself and say, "It's not the end of the world, it's just the beginning of a new one." How can you know everything? You can't. So you gotta take the feedback, you gotta be able to deal with it, but it hurt me badly. One of the things I joke about is that I'm a Leo, like, it's not good. It's not good. We're all
Right.
so full of, like, pride and sunshine or whatever, but it's really hard to take feedback because it feels like it's just a personal criticism, and that's not the case. You can't give feedback intending to be harmful. That's just bullying. So, where you're receiving feedback, it's confidence boosting because it gives you the tools that you need to move forward. But if your ego is receiving the feedback, it just feels like criticism. It just feels like shame. And
Yeah.
that's hard because a huge part of feedback is getting feedback from the people that you're leading. It's not just from the people that you're working for, or that you're reporting to, or who have a higher, like, personal position. You have to get feedback from the people that you're leading also, which that can really be scary for a lot of people.
Right. And I'm an Aries, so I am the bully.
Oh my god,
I am so much
Cheryl,
fire inside of
this
me.
literally explains why we get along so well. My 2 people, actually my 3 people, Aries, Gemini, and Sagittarius. You are the fire, though.
I'm all fire. I had a lot of inner work to do there. Yeah. That's why I don't take feedback.
I'm literally also all fire. Jeez.
Like, all fire. Like, you look at my chart, I'm, like, just all fire. There might be a little sprinkles of water in there, but, like,
Yeah,
everything
I literally
fire.
don't have any water signs in my chart. Everything is earth and water, or earth and fire.
Actually, it's earth. Yeah, sorry, it's earth and fire for me, but
Actually, I'm an
so
Aries rising. That's, like, my whole personality is an Aries rising.
I think mine was Sagittarius. I have to go back and look
Yeah.
at it because I had forgotten. But going back to the conversation about ego and confidence, but confidence is also about the level of belief that you have in yourself, right?
Yeah.
So once you work on that self-belief, and then the feedback is more likely to be taken in the way that it was intended, or you only take the feedback that is intended for you, regardless of how it was delivered.
Right. That's
Right.
clutch.
Yeah.
Essential. Knowing what was intended for you and really like understanding how to take the feedback as it was intended. Very interesting.
And then, so how do you get yourself out of the ego? Like, what are some ways that you can do that, like, in the moment? How can you turn things around?
Oh, in the moment is I think in the moment is a result of building tools from conscious development outside of the moment. I was talking to my wife actually about how to coach people through. So when you're coaching somebody and they're just not hearing you, they're not listening. Like we have all had a team member who we're trying to like give constructive feedback to, and they're just like already thinking the next thing they're gonna say. They're super defensive. They just like, oh, don't want to hear it. Stop listening. And I was saying to her, one of the important things about giving feedback is that you give it in a way that the other person is going to be able to hear you. And sometimes people most respond to consequences because that threatens their egos. Something breaks, there's a consequence. They have to get spoken to, whatever. Dealing with the consequences is dealing with any consequences really hard for the ego. So, how I position it for myself, because I'm also one of those people, as we just said, all fire, is I think about the consequences. And I have an aversion to harming people. So, I think about the consequence of there's harm to somebody if I don't show up in the right way in this conversation, whether it's emotional harm, whether it's harm for their future, whether it's harm for their development. I am in my mind and in my heart somebody who's positioned to break down barriers, who's positioned to help people not harm them. So if a moment when a moment arises and ego is showing up, I'm giving feedback or I'm getting pushback or I'm getting feedback, all I think to myself is, you do not want to face the consequences of letting your ego get in the way of this conversation right now. There will be consequences. Even if there's rage in my spirit and fire in my eyes and I see red, the only thing I have to tell myself is there will be consequences. And that's enough. Maybe I can't name them in the moment, but I know there will be consequences and I don't want to deal with them.
Interesting. So your mantra is there's gonna be consequences.
There will be consequences. Yeah.
See, and then for me, I become like the chatterbox and I just become extra curious and I just seek understanding and a validation of sorts. I'll give you an example of one conversation I just had. This person was expecting me to show up and expecting me to have a conversation with them. And I knew they would be terrified.
Mhm.
They were expecting the worst. They were expecting, I don't know, the wrath of Cheryl. I don't even know what that would look like because I'm me and I don't even know what that would look like in their eyes. But they have some crazy perceptions of who I am sometimes. Like they just get in their heads. I'm like, "Oh, man." So I've come to practice being calm. That's a practice for me. I got fire and I'm like, woo, but being calm for those people that I know are going to be very terrified.
Mhm.
And then removing them from the space. So taking them out for a walk and kind of just asking questions about them,
Mhm.
what's going on with you? Tell me about you. How are you feeling? Asking them out. And those are a lot of uncomfortable conversations, especially with the age group of the people generally that I lead.
Mhm.
Some of them are very resistant to, or I don't even know if it's like intentional resistance. I think it's more they really haven't learned how to really express themselves
Mhm.
or really understand how they're feeling.
Mhm. Mhm.
But for me to not let my ego stand in the way of that person's comfort
Mhm.
or safe space,
Mhm.
and that's my mantra is I want them to feel safe.
Yeah.
I want them to feel safe with me because they're scared, but I want them even though they're scared, I still want them to feel safe.
Mhm.
And that's what goes through my mind when I'm really working on and I mean, I got some crazy levels of frustration with some people. I
Mhm.
have, big concerns about some people. And I look at it, is it judgment? Is it ego? Is it like, what is this? Where is this coming from? And just having those conversations and just telling myself that I'm here to create a safe space. I'm
Yep.
here to listen, and I really have to work on that one because that's something I could easily get emotionally hijacked. I'm not
Oh,
gonna lie. Like I can get caught up in a ball of fire if
yeah.
somebody, and I used to be somebody that really highly reacted to somebody else that was highly reacting. I would like match energy to
Mhm.
energy. When now I'm like, that's not a safe space.
Right.
So this is not safe.
Yeah. The matching energy is so this is another space, this is another topic that really requires self-awareness.
Oh yeah.
Because if you give in to the moment, if you give into the energy of the moment, it reduces effectiveness. It reduces the impact that you're trying to have. It's difficult to be able to predict how people are going to react to either giving or receiving feedback, but you know how you can show up. You know what is required of you in that moment. And like I always say I'm a terrible judge of character, mostly because I just don't believe that I can know anything about a person's character in many contexts. But I understand energy. I understand how people are responding. I understand how to de-escalate. These are all things, some of them may be natural to me, but a lot of them are things that I've learned along the way. A lot of them are like, this takes me back to a time when this particular thing happened, and this is how I reacted and it didn't work, or this is how I reacted and it did work. So I'm more inclined to read the energy of the situation than try to manage the other person's emotions or try to deal with like how the other person is going to react. Like, there's a job to be done, there are things to be said. And this happens in my personal life too, where I'm like, if somebody is going to hear me, I have to show up in a way and then not let their escalation be the cause of my escalation. Because then we would have spent however much time and however much energy basically fighting. It's not working.
Yeah.
But
It's
that
not
I think
working.
is, I think that's a spot that is overlooked by a lot of leaders is what their triggers are. What are the things that cause you to react in a way that's not constructive? Like what are the things? Do you have triggers?
I have triggers. Are you waiting for me to share
I'm
these
ready.
triggers?
I'm ready
I
for you to
don't know if
share
I
your
wanna put
triggers.
those out in the world. There are people out there that would love to know these triggers. A trigger for me that causes me to be emotionally hijacked. You know what? If you could start first, I really have to narrow it down to one sentence.
Okay, I can tell you what my triggers are. And this is innate. These have been my triggers from the time I was a child. And like by child I mean like preteen. I am so triggered by people speaking badly about other people.
Oh,
So like the judgment that comes with a thing where somebody be like, that's just how those people are, kicks me right off. When somebody is like, no, we're not going to hire this person because blah, 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 kicks me right off. When people say things like, oh, I expected this from them, like it's fine, kicks me right off. Those are things that are so difficult for me to like, it just raises my ire. Those are the times that I really have to say, Kia, there will be consequences. Because my initial reaction is to be like, and who are you? To
yeah.
say what? To
Yeah.
whom? And why? But as like the fates, the ancestors, and the gods would have it, 90% of my job is listening to people say things that could be like really, really triggering to me. And then having to be like, nope, this is the world. This is how it goes. This is what the situation is. So I'm very triggered by react or by comments that I believe are reinforcing inequity, really, really, really triggering to me. And the other piece of that is when people refuse to accept that they have biases and refuse to address their biases.
Oh, yeah. The good
That
one. Okay, so for me, my biggest one is somebody not taking accountability or acknowledging that they were part of the problem.
that's a terrible
Like,
one.
What? Can we just like, sometimes I just wanna be like, "Just listen to yourself!" Like, "Do you hear what you're saying?" But I instantly those are the people I find the most challenging to coach
Mhm.
because it is every other person's fault, or it's nobody's fault, or it's my fault and I wasn't even there. Like, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
because
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
everybody's
Anyways.
fault but theirs.
Exactly, and to get them like, they genuinely don't see it.
Mhm. They don't see it.
They don't see it, and it gets me every time. So when I'm asking questions and I'm really asking great questions on to try to guide them to, like, recognize that maybe they did play a part in it, it's like a boxing match that I'm losing in, like, I just keep getting punched in the face, like, it's so terrible.
In the 12th round, you're down on the mat
Like,
fighting.
I'm we're gonna come back to this in a few minutes, I just need a break. My gosh.
It's so
Yeah.
funny because that's actually like that for me is a motivator. It is so motivating to me when people don't accept accountability. And it is I've actually had some of my greatest coaching conversations and some of my greatest just like developmental conversations for myself and for other people when we're talking through how it is that you're going to become accountable in the situation and what it means. And how do I do it? Through the consequences. My favorite positioning for everybody, really, when I'm trying to get people to understand how they need to take accountability, just through the consequences. What happens if you do not assume responsibility for this? Cool. What happens if you don't take accountability? What happens if you don't understand that you are accountable for the outcomes? Getting them to name the thing? Wow! Oh,
So
it brings
yeah,
me
but
joy.
sometimes it is just so hard. I'm gonna give you an example, and I was actually speechless in this moment because I just I couldn't I really pride myself in really understanding people,
Mhm,
right? Like, I really do. And this one person there, I was kind of a mediator between 2 leaders that were having a big, relationship problem.
mm.
And it was both people, and this one leader owned up, like, "This is what I'm gonna do. This is what I'm gonna do to help mend this relationship with this other person. I'm gonna take accountability for this. I'm gonna work on this, and these are the steps I'm gonna take." And I'm like,
Mhm,
"Beautiful." We turned to the other leader, and I said, "So what is gonna be your contribution in helping to build this relationship back up with this leader?"
mhm.
"I'm not. It was all her fault."
What does that even mean?
It means that it was this other person's responsibility to get her to build the relationship back with her.
No, I understand what you said. I don't understand what the point of her saying that was. What was the point of that response? How unhelpful.
She was not gonna contribute to rebuilding that relationship. "Absolutely not," she said. Like, what do you say? She she wasn't with us very much longer after that, but
So that's a vibe, and I can tell you 100% what my response would have been.
what would it have been? Please help me. I would need it for a future reference.
Sure, sure, sure.
Because I honestly, like, even now, that's one conversation. You know, you have those ones that kind of replay in your mind every once in a while.
Mhm.
That one, I'm like, what could I have done differently? Could I have said? What question could I have asked? Like, how could I have? And I mean, and I can feel the frustration. Like, I was just getting, like, it was right here. Like, it's just about to come out. And I'm like, okay, I hear what you're saying. We're gonna have to revisit this. I said, but what would you have done in that moment?
I would have said, "What are the consequences of you not participating in this?"
Where were you?
But,
Well, this
like
is
but
well,
the thing about it is that it's such a disarming question because nobody is really expecting to have to be accountable. If you're already fighting accountability and somebody asks you, "What are you going to do when the consequences show up?" What consequences do you foresee coming from this? Because you're making a choice, right? You're choosing to either do or not do. You're choosing to either show up or not show up. You're choosing everything has a reaction, right? There are nothing just happens and then there isn't like a consequence or a reaction from that thing. So what are the consequences of it? If you choose not to participate, what's the outcome going to be? What are the consequences of it going to be? Talk me through your future plan for that. Because I think when we talk about leaders and what their unseen spots are, all of it is long term. The short term of it is all that is seen. The consequences are not really thought through. There's a lot of deflecting, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of turning things into a zero sum game where my benefit is what matters and there's no community or whatever benefit. But there are consequences and everybody feels. So if you can't get people to see what positive actions do or what the positive outcomes are, let's talk about the consequences. My whole job is evaluating risk. I literally live in a world of consequences. let's let's talk about the consequences. You don't want to
You
participate
live
in
in
the good. Let's talk about
consequences,
the
and I'm creating a safe space out here. So I think it's a good partnership.
I mean, it is because the consequences will allow for safe spaces to be present. Know the consequences so that you can stay safe.
Okay, so what blind spots, if we're talking about leaders and all of the things that, all of the areas that we could probably be better at, what blind spots do leaders commonly have?
I think it's their biases. For me, in my way of leading, I have started as a manager who was very preferential in who I would coach and who I would show up for. I was very well known for saying, if I'm not coaching you, it's a problem because it means that I've just given up on you. And
Mm,
there wasn't
mhm,
always objective evidence or objective reasoning for why I would choose to coach somebody. I could be like, oh, this person is familiar to me. So, there's that bias. And so I like this person. I'm drawn to them. We relate well to each other. Or the moment of, we don't have a lot of representation in our store. So I'm going to focus on developing this person for visible representation. Like, there's a lot of moments where I would be drawn to doing things because of what I believed was best, not because it was what was objectively best. Like, am I choosing a candidate for a position because they have the best qualifications, or am I choosing them because it's what I want? Am I coaching somebody because they objectively are going to be strong in this position, or am I coaching them because it's what I want? These are all things that are driven by bias. The way I would react to people, driven by bias. Actually, in one of the comment of one of your posts, I was saying that I had to be very aware of how I was reacting to people, just like even in the street. I've had terrible interactions with people. And if I had met somebody that reminded me of this person, I would put up a wall. I would have an aversion to that person without even really realizing it, without even knowing it. What are the consequences of that? What are you doing to bring betterment to the situation if all you're doing is being led by your biases? And it is the reason why, actually, back to several conversations that I've had, it is the reason why human resources has so much time spent on equitable hiring practices because you're drawn to people who you're drawn to things that are familiar to you without
comfortable.
being able to give other people the chance, without being able to evaluate
Mhm.
people's qualifications, without having the foresight. Oh, I'm going to keep talking because this actually brings something. Brings something. I had a conversation with somebody who was a small business owner, and I was saying that it's wild to me that human resources has to intervene to remind people that it's illegal to not hire somebody because they're pregnant. And this person responded, well, there's no incentive to hiring pregnant people. I almost lost my mind. Because the question that I had in that moment is, do you realize that you're making a lot of assumptions about this person? You're assuming they're going to go on maternity leave. You're assuming there isn't going to be a paternity leave. You're assuming that they're not a surrogate. You're assuming there are a lot of assumptions that you're making, first of all. Second of all, why, if somebody who is pregnant is the most qualified person for the position, would you risk continuing a search, then having to terminate the person who you brought in who's the next best candidate because they're not able to do the job in the best way over an assumption, over a 9-month gap? You're not hiring for longevity at that point. You're literally just hiring to survive. So you've let your bias drive a decision that is based purely in a system that already tells you that women or estrogen dominant people or people who can get pregnant are going to be a penalty to your organization, a break in the continuity of business, a drain on finances, a drain on time, because the system says it. And then you are being short sighted because all you're thinking about is the next 9 months instead of the years of contribution that person can give. Them being pregnant doesn't make them any less qualified. These are all biases wrapped up into that situation that are unseen. So I think
But we would never ask somebody that we're interviewing, a man, we would never ask him if his wife is pregnant, if he's gonna take paternity leave.
never,
Like, that
never,
would not even cross
because,
our mind.
because the assumption is that systemically, this is what is just expected. It's just expected that women are going to break their careers to stay home to take care of their children. But it is an assumption. It's a bias.
Mhm.
It's a moment that triggers something inside of us to be like, no, this person is not the right candidate. No evaluation of their qualifications. All we see is a baby bump, and all of a sudden, this person is not hireable. And so that was all the evidence that I needed to understand why human resources needs to intervene in these situations, because the blind spot is the bias and the harm that it can do to a human being. Obviously, that is highly inequitable, but also to the business. Your bias is negatively impacting your business. You don't even know it. You don't even see the bias. You don't even see what it is that you're doing. You're just living it. You're just living the stream. So,
Right? And that's why it's like going right back to the very start of this conversation about self-awareness. That's why it's so important to have that self-awareness, to question your beliefs, to question why you're thinking in a certain way about a certain topic or person
yep,
or situation.
yep,
All of those things will bring out those biases, those beliefs that you could work through and change and look in at it through in a different light.
yeah.
Ugh,
That is like, no, I don't think either one of us could like express it enough why the self-awareness is so important, and
yeah,
all of the good that comes from just this one repeated action of being in tune with yourself.
yeah.
It just changes everything.
For me, the blind spot for me was assuming that everybody had the same perception of the world as I did,
Mhm.
right? Like, I just thought everybody thought the same as I did, so I never questioned. I don't think I asked a question in coaching until, like, 10 years ago, and
Mm.
which I mean, that sounds like a long time ago, but before that, I had been in retail for 20 years before that.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a long time of not asking questions of people. Because I just assumed that everybody thought the same way I did,
Mhm.
and how could you not? Because clearly my way is the right way of thinking.
Mm.
If you could see my face as a question mark, like,
But I mean, that's like that thing where people, they say common sense is not so common. There's no such thing as common sense.
Mhm.
The whole purpose of self-awareness is understanding that everybody lives a different life. How can there be nothing the patterns are consistent, the way people interact with social norms consistent. But like what is commonality? Like what is a common sense thing? If it's not like that first layer of what is it, Maslow's pyramid or whatever, where it's like safety. Okay.
Yeah,
Run from the tornado. But anything outside of that is so impacted by your the way you've lived your life, by the
yep,
nurturing
everything.
conditioning.
Society that you grew up in, the community, the just everything.
Yeah.
Everything has an impact. So that's why it's so important to question why you are thinking the way that you are, or why you're making the decision in the way that you are, or why you're responding in the way that you are.
Mhm.
Just question it. Where is this coming from? That's the question we need to ask. Where is this coming from? Does this make sense? Probably not now.
My favorite.
Ugh.
Just question it.
Just question it. Every time something comes out of your mouth, just throw a question at it.
Yeah.
Where is this coming from?
Yeah.
And it could absolutely be coming from the most beautiful, great intentional space. And that's great. And that's great validation.
Yeah.
But it's still important to ask the question.
100%. Because also, like, if you think back to 50 years ago, what was true then is not necessarily true now. Socially, economically, culturally, not necessarily. Like, you gotta be questioning everything all the time. Questions are asked and answered. But that also is, I think, leads into this next point of the difference between reacting and responding. Like, in my experience, I react when I am being driven by like a fight or flight. Fight or flight. Is that it? Fight or flight? I like
Yes.
when I am put in a position where my like most basic human instincts are triggered, or I've experienced something that has caused me to react in a way. Like I was telling you, even when I'm walking down the street and I'm thinking to myself, like, who of these people do I feel most compelled to trust, and who are these people am I leery of? Why? I would be likely to react in a situation like that, where I am prone to responding, and this is something that I pride myself on because I've practiced a lot in my life, is taking time, slowing things down. Every second matters. Every second gives you more details. Every second gives you more of an opportunity to show up in the best way possible. If you just slow down and think, why am I feeling this way?
Pause. Mhm.
What is happening right now? Why am I feeling this way? What is causing these things? Who's around me? Asking yourself the questions before anything external happens, in my experience, is the difference between reacting and responding.
Yeah. Absolutely. For me, and I talk about this often, is that we really don't have control over our initial reaction.
Mm,
Like sometimes it's just like a bam, it hits you in the face.
mm,
But you always, and with that pause that you're talking about or that space, you always have the choice on how you're going to respond
mhm,
to, or if you're going to respond, or if you're going to continue on with that reaction.
mhm, mhm,
It's always your choice at that point. How,
mhm,
like that initial jolt,
mhm,
out of your control. Totally get it. That's human nature. That's like part of us.
mhm, mhm,
But what you do from that moment on,
mhm,
that pause that you take, that choice that you make in that moment, that is all you from that point on.
mhm, mhm.
And that's why it's really important, like you said, to slow down, take a breath, pause. So important. Uh, so let's talk about then some daily practices that help you stay self-aware. What is one thing?
So there's a moment, like you were saying, where that initial reaction happens and you don't have control over that initial reaction. In my world, like this is like a personal world, like an out in the world and a work world. I have to prepare myself for that initial reaction. So I know there are situations that I will go into where I am likely to hear something that is going to very deeply upset my humanity. I've got to get ready for that. Understanding the room I'm walking into will help me conceal an initial reaction. The only thing about that, though, is that I'm a human. So things have to come out. Where I'm in spaces where I feel safe, where I feel like people are going to be able to understand me, who know me, where, whatever, I can be much less emotionally regulated. That emotional regulation is how I exist safely in the world. That emotional regulation is how I exist even marginally successfully in this world. I, on the daily, say, Kia, some things are going to be hard. It's going to be okay. Just know how to show up as your best self in that moment. Be prepared to be your best self in that moment. Your best self in that moment. There will be consequences. There will
Mm.
be consequences because it's really like it is
It's the title of our
the moment.
episode.
Yeah, there will be consequences. Yeah.
There,
The other
there
thing
will be.
is I talk out loud to myself. When I'm
Yeah.
walking, I talk out loud to myself. it gives me a whole different perspective. Where I'm feeling really upset or really harmed, I'll say to myself, why do you feel this way, Kia? What is going on inside of you? You know how this person is in life. You're still choosing to show up. These are the consequences of you choosing to show up. You've made this decision. This is how they act. This is how you respond. That self-awareness is, or that talking to myself, that self-talk really helps to put things into perspective for me.
So that's for you responding rather than reacting? Or is that just about self-awareness as
That's my
part of it all?
that's my literal daily practice
Daily practice.
for
Okay.
for self-awareness.
Interesting that you prepare yourself for the day.
Mhm.
For me, I take time at the end of my day to really reflect on how
Mm.
everything went. And now that I'm thinking, like, I'd probably be more practical to be prepared rather than reflective. But I mean, for me, it's worked. Like, it's helped me really understand my day. It's really helped me understand the conversations that I've had throughout the day. And did all the words I use feel good? Did
Mm.
my actions really kind of showcase my intentions?
Mhm.
And how can I do it
Mm,
differently?
mm, mm, mm. I love, did my actions showcase my intentions?
Yeah.
That is some clutch business right there. Honestly, that is I wish more people ask that question. I really do.
Yeah.
Did my actions reflect my intentions?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, so I do that every day, and then I confirm, yeah, it was a pretty good day, or maybe I needed to do a little something different.
Yeah. 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 I feel that.
Yeah.
I don't think I reflect at the end of the day maybe enough. Maybe like I draw at the end of the day, I draw to, like, decompress and, like, take myself out of a thing, but I go for, like, 7 million walks a day because those walks are literally how I salvage my soul after every after every interaction where I'm like, "Hmm." Mm, the walks. Talking about the walks.
Oh, yeah. So we are ready to do our rapid fire round. So I'm gonna start off asking Kia a couple of questions.
Uh,
So here goes. How do you recognize when you're out of alignment?
my breathing gets very short.
That's a good one.
Mhm.
Can self-awareness be learned, or is it natural?
Only learned.
Learned?
100%.
100% learned. Excellent.
Cheryl, what's one question everyone should ask themselves more often?
What what am I believing right now? Yeah. Mhm. Where is this belief coming from?
I love that.
Yep.
And if listeners could do one thing today to become more self aware, what would it be?
I think we say this a lot too, but be more curious instead of like standing in your certainty.
Mm-hmm. I've been so certain of so many things. And when the earth moves and things are not the way they were, it has totally thrown me. And that, I believe, is a very strong point, which is why do I believe this? What do I believe? Why do I believe it? And being curious about where the world is moving, how it's going, and why certainty is not a pro, like, it's not a benefit, it's a cost to moving forward in life. You cannot be certain because everything is always changing.
So fluid. Yep.
That was a wild wrap. That was a wild wrap up. That really
Yep.
brought it all home.
Brought it all home. So, listeners, thank you for listening to episode 1 of the Conscious Leaders Unfiltered. We are always here to try to make the most incredible impact on everybody out there. So, if you feel aligned with this conversation, you loved it, or if you want to share it with somebody that you think could benefit from this conversation, please share, subscribe, like, comment, do all the things, hit all the buttons. And we are looking forward to having you with us on our next conversation. And as always, go find the good and lead with love.
Mm-mm.